As we look now to the fourth Sunday of Lent, we are advancing in terms of preparation for adult baptism, which is a major theme of Lent, but it's also a time for renewal of those who have already been baptized. But let's take a closer look at this gospel, because it's very important in those parishes and churches where adults are being prepared for the sacrament of baptism. I know that might be a surprise to some, but there are people that are not baptized. A lot of people in this world that are not baptized, even those who are among us, sometimes even in church, we don't know that or realize that. So they need to be baptized, and if they're baptized as adults in the Catholic Church today, they just don't receive baptism, they receive what's called confirmation and Holy Communion, which are called the three sacraments of initiation, as opposed to your upbringing when you were a child, where they were all separated by years apart. These three sacraments are called officially the sacraments of initiation, and like in the Eastern churches, both Catholic and Orthodox, these sacraments are always put together as, you might say, a trinity of initiation to the church. So let's look more closely at this gospel that's so important in the preparation for those who are going to be baptized, and also for us. It's the whole status, you might say, is the question about what we see and what we don't see. Our eyes are very important to us, and yet they can be deceiving. Sometimes we don't see what others see. So it's a very interesting question, and Jesus puts that all together in a very beautiful incident he has with a man born blind. And it's interesting because the first question is posed to him by people that are around this man born blind. They say, "Hey, Jesus, who sinned? His parents? Or did he? Why is he this way?" And then Jesus really makes a clear statement: neither he nor his parents sinned. It is so that the works of God might be made visible through him. It's a good reminder to us that sometimes people attribute to sin what isn't really of sin. It's not caused by sin. Certainly one is born blind, or one is born crippled, or one is born without hearing, one is born that cannot speak. All these things are not necessarily a sin that somebody did and they had to be punished for it. But it is still an opportunity, Jesus says, it is so that the works of God might be made visible through him. Through him, meaning obviously the man born blind. And so Jesus then continues with a miracle of having him restore his sight, but it's a little complicated how he does it. And he sends him away to be washed in a pool of Siloam, a very certain sort of a sacred pool to the Jews of Jesus' day in Jerusalem. And he washes and he's able to see, and he comes back to where he started with, and of course Jesus sort of melts into the crowd. And there's some people there, religious leaders, who are confused, and he starts making a point that this man Jesus is the one who made his eyes open. And the group says, "Oh, come on now, how could he do this? It's a Sabbath. He's certainly not a good man." And they start arguing against this man who is now seeing, and saying, it's impossible, and this Jesus couldn't have done it. And then they question his parents, and his parents say, "Well, he was born blind. What can we say? We had nothing to do with that. That's how he got cured." Well, ask him. He's old enough to speak on his own. Finally, Jesus appears and runs into him. And he says, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" Which is another way of speaking of someone specially sent by God, an agent of God. And he says, "Who is he, sir, that I might believe in him?" And the blind man then hears from Jesus himself. He says, "I am he. You've seen him. I'm speaking with you." And he becomes very elated. He says, "Oh my gosh, I do believe in you." And he worships the Lord. And Jesus then says something very interesting. He says, "I came into this world for judgment, so that those who do not see might see. That those who do not see might see, and those who do see might become blind." And of course, the religious leaders surrounding this whole incident sort of perk up their ears and say, "Wait a minute now. Surely we are not also blind, are we?" And Jesus said, very interesting, "If you were blind, you would have no sin. But now you are saying we see. so your sin remains. In a very real way, his presence, in a sense, some people are blind to who he really is. This blind man who originally couldn't see now sees and knows who Jesus is, and he sees him. And now those religious leaders that are around him are the ones who are really the blind ones. And they are, you might say, remaining in their sins because they have a sight, but they really can't understand who Jesus is. It's a very beautiful passage in Scriptures. It reminds us all there's lots more things that we need to see. Only the things of God are really worth seeing. And God sees things in ways that we cannot see them. And as long as we don't see them the way he sees them, we're really blind to him and to his presence. We need to open our eyes to the love of God around us.